Greetings folks, this is Peter Skov from Music is a Journey. This video is another one of those sudden videos to come up. This is Friday, December 13th. Wednesday morning I woke up and looked at the screen of my smartphone and there was a BBC News update saying that Jeff Beck had died at the age of 78. And that it's one of those things, like, you know, these last few years especially, I've become really aware of how a lot of the musicians that I respect and admire, and a lot of them that I really enjoyed listening to, have been passing away. You know, 2016 was a terrible year for musicians and actors, but anyway, I always hate to get that kind of news, even if it's someone I didn't really listen to very much. But Jeff Beck is not a person whose career I followed very closely. In fact, basically, from the late 60s on, I haven't really listened to anything he's done, even though I know he did a couple of albums in the 70s that were really important for guitar instrumental albums. I remember hearing it said or reading somewhere that if he hadn't released, I don't remember if it was Blow by Blow maybe, in the 1970s, guitar instrumental albums probably would not have been possible, but you know, his was such a success. I did have Truth on cassette back in the 80s, but I was more into Led Zeppelin's debut, sorry Jeff, so I didn't think as much of Truth because it just wasn't as heavy as I was hoping it would be. But Jeff Beck is very important to me because of the work he did with the Yardbirds. You see, in the late 80s, I was very interested in tracing the roots of heavy metal and went back to the 70s, and I listened to bands like Vanilla Fudge, Iron Butterfly, of course Cream, Jimi Hendrix, and so on. And the Yardbirds became one of my favorites because they seemed to be one of the bands that was least often talked about. You could often hear mention of Cream and, of course, Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce, and Iron Butterfly because of In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. Vanilla Fudge, not as much, but still they showed up in conversations from time to time. But I just didn't feel there was as much conversation about the Yardbirds, and for me they were just more interesting than the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. And basically that was because of what happened when Jeff Beck joined the band. Originally they had Eric Clapton. Well, actually there was someone before Eric, but Eric was in during their early recording years in late 63 and 1964. And they were quite strictly a blues band. They even performed with Sonny Boy Williamson, and it is really blues, a little bit too much for my taste. But once Jeff Beck joined, Jeff started introducing some new sounds to the band, and a lot of those sounds are, I guess, what you'd call proto-metal. There was distorted guitar being used, there were some crashing chords, there were lots of guitar solos with fuzz tone and distortion, and the Yardbirds just got this edgier sound to them. Almost, in some songs, it was almost a kind of like a gritty, mean edginess to them. And one of their most important songs was, they covered the song Train Kept A-Rolling, and the way the Yardbirds did it, there are other people doing it, but the way the Yardbirds did it was a big influence on a lot of bands to come up later on in the 1970s. We heard Aerosmith and Motorhead covering Train Kept A-Rollin'. Another song, Shapes of Things, was covered by Nazareth. And I'm pretty sure Aerosmith also covered Think About It, which was actually with Jimmy Page. But anyway, you can probably find lots of bands in the 70s that were directly inspired by the works of the Yardbirds, and most of that coming from the time that Jeff Beck was with the band. In fact, there was a band out of California in the mid-1960s called The Misunderstood. Their biggest influence was the Yardbirds. Even some of their songs had a kind of a distinctive, like you could almost tell that song of theirs, The Misunderstood, must have been inspired by this song by the Yardbirds. And what was interesting was they met with John Peel, who actually saw them perform and became friends of the band and wanted to help promote them, get them out of California and over to London. But there was a time where singer Rick Brown and I think the guitarist were invited over to John Peel's place, and he played for them the latest single by the Yardbirds, which at that time was the single Shapes of Things. And Rick Brown, I have a book over on my shelf here, Rick Brown just describes how impressive that song was for them, how remarkable it was, and especially after the guitar solo, those crashing chords, and that same kind of crashing chord guitar effect the Misunderstood would then apply to their first recordings that they did in England. So anyway, what I want to do today is I want to visit, and I just scribbled this down quickly at work. I haven't had a time to revisit my Yardbirds CDs, so just off the top of my head, I scribbled down 8 moments, I'm going to call them metal moments, that Jeff Beck had with the Yardbirds. And this is basically where elements that lead to heavy metal showed up in Yardbird songs. I also want to mention, in the 1980s, there was a magazine called Metallion out of Canada, and they had this page, the Roots of Metal page, where I enjoyed reading that because I read about Iron Butterfly, 10 Years After, and Vanilla Fudge. But I also remember they had one page one time with the Yardbirds and talking about how important, how influential the Yardbirds were towards the development of heavy metal. So anyway, what I'm going to do, as I said, I want to talk about 10 metal moments. Now, I cannot play these on the guitar. I've never tried. And I haven't played guitar for a long time, and if I just try to imitate the sounds with my voice, it's kind of stupid, I think, sometimes, and I could describe it to you, but I'd actually like you to hear it. So what I'm going to do is, in the original release of this video, I'm going to try to put in just really short snippets, because if I include maybe 3-4 second snippets, the video might not get blocked. But if the video does get blocked, I'm going to just re-upload the video where the music sections will just be silent. So let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot. The first song, just I scribbled down on my list, is Happenings 10 Years Time Ago. Just a moment. Here we go. I actually forgot that I had this. This is the Yardbirds, Roger the Engineer. Their 1966 album with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page playing, and Happenings 10 Years Time Ago. Where the heck is it? Happenings 10 Years Time Ago. Well, wouldn't you know it? It's not even listed on here. Well, what do you know? It's actually not even on here. I thought this song was on this album. Well, hey, guess what? I have this Yardbirds album. I don't have a record player, but I have this. I bought this back in the 1980s for, it was $20 back then. Anyway, Happenings 10 Years Time Ago, which I have on CD, was a track that was recorded with Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page both playing lead guitar. But I really loved the kind of, it has a kind of almost like spy movie type riff to it. And then it had like the dual guitar solo with some kind of like fuzz tone effects. So let's just listen to a very short clip of that, because I think that was a really cool song. So let's play it. Man, I actually can't remember what was on here that might have also been heavy. The songs that I do remember, I remember as not being particularly heavy. Well, there's Over, Under, Sideways, Down, which is not really heavy, but does have some great lead guitar work in it. Lost Women, I don't remember that. I Can't Make Your Way, Rack My Mind. Farewell, I don't remember. Turn Into Earth. What Do You Want? Ever Since the World Began. No, that one's just a weird one. He's Always There does have a kind of a buzzing riff to it. It's not that particularly heavy though. It's just this like da 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 dum boom boom da 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 dum boom. But anyway, let's go on with my actual real list that I prepared here. I'm Not Talking. Now this is the song that I feel just has this really mean, dirty kind of riff to it, really cool sound, and that is actually one of the songs that directly influenced a song by The Misunderstood. So let's just listen to a short bit from I'm Not Talking. Just put the album up there behind me. Okay, next up is a song called I Ain't Done Wrong, and I totally flipped out when I heard this because it is a blues song and it's got this pretty cool kind of simple guitar riff. It's got the harmonica and it's kind of bluesy. But in the middle section, it suddenly turns into what sounds like thrash blues. Like thrash 12-bar blues. It just goes like this. Well, again, instead of me doing it, let's just listen to a bit of that right now. Unfortunately, I can't play a really long segment of that because if I do, the risk of the video getting blocked increases, but I hope you got the idea if it didn't get blocked by the time you see this. Next up, Train Kept A-Rollin' and Stroll On. Now, the original is Train Kept A-Rollin', which is actually a jump blues song from, I think it was the 1940s, and it was covered by the Johnny Burnett Trio in the 50s. And in their version, there is this buzzing guitar riff that comes in, and it is that guitar riff that the Yardbirds went with. There were other people covering it. In fact, Screaming Lord Sutch with Ritchie Blackmore on guitar also covered it, but they did it in a different way. The Yardbirds took that particular riff and went with it, and that is the big one. That's, you can even see a video where it's like Jeff Beck, Jimmy Page, Metallica, Joe Perry, just all these people are on stage playing that song. You can find it on YouTube. But anyway, when the Yardbirds, they were going to appear in a movie called Blow Up, which was about a fashion photographer. You can find the scene on YouTube as well. And anyway, they wanted to play Train Kept A-Rollin', but the original writer of the song, the guy who held the copyright, said he didn't want to have the Yardbirds playing that song in the movie. So they kept the music, because that had been rearranged by the band anyway, but they rewrote the lyrics. And of course the rearrangement was from the Johnny Burnett Trio, so not the original author anyway. So they re-recorded the song, and it's actually heavier. Like, I think the original Train Kept A-Rollin' was 1965, but the new version, which was entitled Stroll On, with new lyrics, was actually heavier. And again, we have Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page both playing together on this song. And in the movie Blow Up, you can actually see them on stage performing the song, which of course is just, you know, playback. The song is just playing and the band are miming playing. But Jeff Beck's speakers start going all staticky, and he gets really angry, and he starts beating them with his guitar, and then he trashes the guitar. That's kind of funny. All right, so that is Stroll On. So yeah, let's just listen to a short bit from that one. Yeah, I really love that. I think that's a really, really good, heavy, hard-hitting rockin' track from 1966. So next up is Someone to Love Part 2. Now, the original Someone to Love was a more clean, guitar, bluesy type track. They did Someone to Love Part 2, which was an instrumental, which continued that clean guitar, bluesy riff as the main bit, but Jeff Beck goes on to a fuzz tone or distorted guitar experimental part, and he's just going, like, he's doing lots of stuff. He's got this like Eastern sounding feel to it. He's got, like, you know, finger hammering going in there. He's got these like crashing distorted chords and distortion effects. It's just really awesome. So I want to just play a short clip from that as well so you can hear it. So let's check out Somebody to Love Part 2. Then there was I'm a Man, which starts off as just a pounding blues rocker, but the second part of the song changes over into a little bit more of an intense guitar solo part. So let's just play a short clip from that one there. You can feel the intensity of Jeff Beck's playing. Okay, and then one of the more well-known songs that Jeff Beck did with the Yardbirds at the time, Mr. You're a Better Man Than I. And that's a really cool one. It's not so heavy throughout most of the song, but it does have this mood to it. A little bit light, but it also establishes, it's like, you know, you're a better man than I because you can do this and that and that. But all the things he's saying is the things that we actually, you know, especially as hippies, you know, you don't want in society. Can you condemn a man by the way he speaks or spells? Is this more important than the stories that he tells, and so on? But there is a really cool guitar solo with some pretty good heavy distorted guitar in parts. So that's the part I want to focus on. So let's check that out from Mr. You're a Better Man Than I by the Yardbirds. Okay, and finally, Shapes of Things, one of their big songs there from 1966. Again, featuring a really cool guitar solo by Jeff Beck, and then it wraps up with just these, you know, hammering chords coming out. Dun, dun, bwang. But let's check out a little bit of the guitar solo there. Alright, so the time that Jeff Beck spent with the Yardbirds, I'm not sure how many songs they actually recorded. I'm going to guess it's probably somewhere around like 25 or 30 different songs. On the album here, there's some 12 songs. On some of the CDs I have, there are other songs. Some songs were like B-sides or singles or studio outtakes, whatever. And there was even a song where Jeff is actually singing lead vocal on. I think it's the Nazareth Blue. But that is the time, like, because of what he was doing on the guitar with the Yardbirds at that time, that is the work of Jeff Beck that is most important to me. Now, of course, I know Jeff went on to do many incredible things, and probably if I buy some of his albums and listen to them, I will really appreciate it, I'm sure. In fact, I might even want to go back and listen to Truth and Beckola again. But for now, that's where Jeff Beck's work remains as the deepest impression, because it was so influential in the creation of heavy metal. So we're going to leave it at that, and I just want to say a big thanks to Jeff for all that he did then, and of course all that he did after, that continued to push the guitar as an instrument forward and push music forward. He was just a really innovative, creative guy who was always looking to see how he could extend his boundaries or break the rules. So very awesome person. So big thanks to Jeff for all of that. And it is, of course, very sad that, you know, 78 is still kind of young. It's very sad that he had to pass away so soon. However, it is also true that he probably already left us with the most important work that he did. So thank goodness he stuck around that long to give us all that. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching this video here. I will catch you in the next one, I hope. Everyone take care. Have a good January. See you around. Bye.